episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Reverend Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to a Let's Talk program, K of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you will call. If you have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow the live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this edition of the Let's Talk show tonight here on this cold and rainy Tuesday night here on the island of Nevis. Whereby I want to say good evening to all those persons who are in our various hospitals here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, those persons who are ill, under the weather. I hope that certainly with divine intervention and with the assistance of our doctors and nurses, that they will soon be up and about very quickly. To those families who are in mourning tonight, the loss of a loved one, a friend, a colleague, just an acquaintance, I hope that they can remember the individual with fond memories, and we certainly want to continue to lift up those various families who are in mourning tonight, who have lost loved ones. Webbo, to those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or certainly some accomplishment in their life, we certainly want to wish them a wonderful evening despite the inclement weather, and I hope that they are having a wonderful evening tonight. Webbo, today is International Men's Day, so I just want to wish all of the men here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and certainly those who are listening this edition, a happy International Men's Day. And I hope that they would have reflected on their role in our community, their role in this world, and as I would hope that they can continue to make significant contribution to the development of humanity. Webbo, I want to say good evening to your hardworking staff here, and I want to thank you for the invitation tonight.
Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert, and good evening to all those who are listening and viewing via the various media. I would like to say a special good evening to my fellow panelists. Webbo, I too would like to join Mr. Brannan to say Happy International Men's Day to all the men in the Federation and further afield. Webbo, I would also like to say happy birthday belated birthday to my eldest brother Frank, his daughter. They celebrated, I think was on the 17th. Happy birthday to them, and of course, I want to say a special happy birthday to my neighbor, Sian. Webbo, we are here as per usual every Tuesday night with something that we deem important, and as per usual, hoping that tonight's discussion would be a fruitful one. Also hoping that persons could call in, be a part of the program. As I often say, Webbo, we can learn from you and you can learn something from us. So once again, Webbo, thank you for the invitation for tonight, and I'm looking forward for a fruitful discussion.
Conrad Nair Liebert, good evening.
Good night. Good evening, Webbo, and a pleasant good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues around the table. Good evening to you guys. as it is International Man Day. I say a very special good evening to you guys. I suppose tonight we can discuss more or something about the role and responsibility of the men in the home, in the community, in the workplace, in leadership, and probably the challenge posed by the female going forward. Webbo, it's always a pleasure to be here and to be part of the conversation on Tuesday night, and I would encourage the general public to be a part of the discussion also. And to my friends in the international circle, a long time I have not said hello to you guys in Toronto, and my brethren Mr. Libert in Connecticut. It's a special good evening to you. And of course has been a bit rainy day today and yesterday, but that's the beauty of living in the Caribbean, in Nevis. Tomorrow might be summer again, and we appreciate that. So we welcome all to a beautiful island. It's I think it's about the tourist season, that time of year, and so we can probably say something about keeping the island in the state of welcomeness for the many visitors that we would be expecting, not just for Christmas, but throughout the tourist season. Webbo, once again, I say thank you for another invitation, and I look forward to a good discussion this evening.
Okay, now I don't know what each person has to put on the table, but I have a little problem. I don't normally have problems.
You're scaring me.
Well, it's just that by the time I finish, you probably realize I use the wrong word.
Oh, okay.
I'm a fella like that too, always using words wrong. So I have this little thing I want solved. I think you're all going to like it. And then I got a couple of other things. Now I had just mentioned something about the rain, and I made a few notations, and I want to encourage our people. Sometimes I heard a gentleman present a speech one time, years and years ago, and the subtopic of his speech was accentuate the positive. At the time I didn't know the point he was trying to make until I went, I listened to the presentation. But accentuate the positive. It'll make a lot of difference in our lives. As you're thinking about it, you can think, well, what would be the opposite of that? Accentuate the positive. If you don't do that, if we don't do that, what will be the alternate facts to that? Because like it was alternate facts, right? So what will be alternate to that? So we're going to get to all that. But I have this song that I want to play, and I'm going to first ask Mr. Brand to go get a go at it. Tell me who is the singer and which band was doing the work, and then Naya, and then Fifield. I don't think Fifield would know, because sometimes he reminds me of Stanley. He probably will say, yes, I know. Anyway. By the way, 100 things into one. We don't know yet about Stanley and the funeral and all that.
Yeah.
So as soon as we know, we'll let you all know. And just one more thing. Every time I have to speak about him in the past, it hurts.
Yeah.
So I'll play this song, right? Now, if we don't get it, there's a fellow who is a regular listener to this program, contributes heavily. So I'm asking him, if my guys get it wrong, please call and let us know, because I can almost bet that he will know the answer. He's solid, he's got some good history, and he should have been around that time. So let me not waste any more of your time. Let's go to the song.
clientele catching a fever when it comes to the season of Culturama. Lord, what a scene in Charleston. Children and parading up and down. 5,000 and more come from all over just to get their share of what we have to offer. Everything got a touch of local flavor. That's the way it should be for Culturama, because the Calypso show gon' blow their mind. This culture show gon' be a heavy line. Check out the big ballet that you can buy. Don't forget the biggest of all, the Jubilee. The whole population joining the action. Everybody with full participation. Oh, what color and splendor, replacing a burning heat for Culturama. Then big drum and string man start taking over, displaying the act of our ancestor. Giants and spades and masquerades on parade. Even the mafia zombies when we on the stage. But the Calypso show don't blow their mind. Miss Culture show gon' be a heavy line. Check out the big parade at Troop and Band. Don't forget the biggest of all, the Jubilee. The whole of the city full with excitement. City full creating great entertainment. Need that school performing for soon. Down to a folklore to make the show. Then aquatic sports take place at the pier. Local food sell producing the ginger beer. Oh, what mass, what fantasy. It's really the Caribbean greatest summer festivity. Because the Calypso show gon' blow your mind. Miss Culture show gon' be a heavy line. Check out the big parade at Troop and Band. Don't forget the biggest of all, the Jubilee.
Spencer Brand.
Well, I'm on shaky ground with this one. The voice sound like it's Benno. The voice sound.
Were you looking up at me for? You don't ask me.
The voice is sounding like Benno.
But to be fair, you did say you're on shaky ground.
I'm on shaky ground, but the voice sound like Benno.
And then what?
The band to me is, I'm leaning towards Soul Survivors.
Naya.
Yeah, it's Soul Survivors and Benno.
It's Soul Survivors and Benno.
I think, yes.
No, Fifield, you know anything about it?
The voice is Benno's voice, Webbo, from what I heard. And I'm really not sure which band it is, but I am leaning towards Soul Survivors also.
You ever hear about copying?
Copyright?
No, copy. When you're in school and you copy.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're not copying.
You sound like you're copying.
It is written.
Yeah, that's Benno.
Yes.
But I am amazed.
Nice song.
Are you right? And I'm trying to find out which band it was. Now, it could have been Soul Survivors because
the bass line sound like the Soul Survivors bass line.
Mhm.
What the guy name?
Priest.
Swanston.
Yes,
Swanee.
Swanson. Atnell.
That sound like Swanee, rhythm music in the bass line. But the voice definitely to me is Ben.
Yeah, it is Benno.
Okay.
It is Benno. But the horn section is what's confusing me because to me it almost sounded like IC's horn section.
Yeah, I believe it was the time when some guys from Sinkis had joined the Soul Survivors. Man like the guy that sing the national anthem, my name there? And Stanley.
Georges?
Stanley. The other guy named Stanley used to play saxophone, but there's also a trombone there.
And the guy from Cotton Ground?
Could have been Everett Sargent. No, Everett
Ting was playing trombone at the time as well.
He had a guy named Clive.
Yeah, he played trumpet.
Trumpet. But he had another guy,
With
I think
ICs.
one of his fingers
Steve?
was
No, he was that same one, Clive.
No, you had two Clive, you know.
Remember
Clive.
Remember Ting used to
But the
play
sound
trombone
of the
too,
keyboard.
Swanee.
It's what made me think it's Soul Survivors. That's definitely Tapang sound.
And the rhythm.
And the keyboard.
The keyboard.
Yeah, that's Tapang. Clive Scarborough.
You'll stick with Soul Survivors. Tampy, let us know because by the process of elimination, Tampy will know because Tampy will say, "Well, that wasn't us." I see it, right? And who knows? Maybe if it was IC's, you'd have heard Tampy's voice.
Yes.
In,
yes.
backing up.
His voice is very distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just thought I will throw that in. So, what I wanted to make the point is the range that we have.
Well, but before
yes.
you go to the
Go
end,
ahead.
go back to the song a bit. This was a song I believe would be in the early 70s.
No.
And
I think it's 79. That was 79,
mid
81.
70s,
More like it is.
80s.
Yeah, 81.
late 80s, early 80s.
Early 80s.
81. there.
Okay, but the point I was getting at was the musician and the composition was all. There was hardly any digital, any electronic stuff in those kind of music when this particular song was written. You had the bass man, you had the organ, you had the rhythm. Everybody. There was a lot of people that were playing instrument manual.
Yeah, you had to play.
And I thought that you see that generic richness and that generic genuine sound and feel in the music coming out of those talented musicians. And I think that it is something that as a people I feel that we need to probably take an extremely good look at it again, because when you hear those bands of the late 70s, early 80s and into the 90s, you get a lot of that original
Human feel.
human touch and so on coming from it, and it was rich. As soon as I hear the singing, I said, that's better voice. That's
Yeah, that was better.
Distinct.
What puzzles me?
Yeah.
Sorry, Brad. Go ahead. I'll
as soon as you hear the singing, there was no distortion of the voice. It was Benno, singing and in his own melodious, unique way.
Good calypso, yeah.
And I felt that was the real uniqueness of the period that we came through in the late 70s and early 80s of those type of calypsos.
Yeah, what amazes me is the quality and the standard that those guys had those days. And it would perhaps provide a good debate to compare it with now.
Yes.
You check the song and the lyrics as it applies, speaks about the festivity.
Yes.
Right? And I don't know whether or not, well, we tried to do a little something, but whether or not those things should not have been disconnected. In other words, I hear people talking a lot, debate and talk about culture changing and stuff like that, and I just listen. Because a lot of it I quietly assess in my mind that's a weak debate. Because it doesn't mean that you cannot continue with the basics of something.
Yes.
You don't have to throw away something to say that you are improving.
That's true.
Right? Those things are weak debates. You see what I'm saying? So I just thought I'll just bring it here and start with that, and it is my way to compliment those persons who did that work.
Yeah.
Benno was a good calypsonian. I mean, he was so much into calypso since he was at school. You know, he left school. He was singing during school days. Left school, went straight into the music, into Soul Survivors as a lead vocalist. And he was a very good calypsonian, a very good singer. And as Mr. Brand was saying, those days there's a lot of human feel in it. Sometimes, honestly, the rhythm box is just a bit too much. It takes away from the originality, because when you listen big bands like Elimat and the G.I. Brass and those rhythm sections, you know, it's man on congos, bongos, and steel, and you know, and I mean, bands like them make it to the top, really. Not with the speed that a rhythm box have today, because I mean, you see a rhythm box, you listen to a rhythm box today, you know, I mean, Small Axe and those bands, I mean, so much speed.
150
So
plus.
the music back then had more bounce to it. You listen to music like King Shortshot music, and you know, those music, it wasn't about speed, it was quite bounce, melodious, you know, and
Well, I mean, Naya,
like
even listening to the show that Webbo would have done for Culturama 50, listen to some of Zumba Calypso, that speed, that tempo, even Jojo in his early days, they had that nice, slow, melodious beat coming out of, and I think that you are correct that a lot of the rhythm section now is up at that 150, 140.
You
tempo.
might treat this as a light moment, if you will, but this ain't, you know. I hope you all are not criticizing the speed because you can't keep the pace. No. Just, hey, that's my job. I just ask questions. Just checking.
No, we were just doing the comparison between now and then.
Hello, I'm just checking.
Yep, I feel you. Maybe you too.
Yeah, but it's good. Like I said, I wanted to give commendation to, well, Benno is departed, but you know, I told Speedy maybe if I say it now, he might, you know, come around to it. He and I had an agreement. He was supposed to reproduce some of his dad's work.
Okay.
And why does everybody feel they should bluff me?
He bluffed you with that?
Obviously, because he hasn't done it yet. And I told Pat to work with me to make sure that he does it. And he met me once and tell me, almost finished.
I better do have a lot of material, you know.
Yeah. So maybe that would have been a good one for the 50th, but it still can be done. So Speedy and Pat, work with me. Let's get this thing done. The people will appreciate it. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Anybody else want to go into anything? Or you will let me just mention what I wanted to mention about the rain.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I just wanted to mention, I found it interesting that, well, a lot of folks are very young. So they're not accustomed to the sort of water that we've been seeing over the past couple of days. For instance, the bridge there at Camps.
Yes.
Right? People from, the folks from that side, can tell you about that. In those days, that always used to have water in it. And in fact, they used to call it the Camp River. Camps River,
Yes.
Yes.
right? And that comes from all the way in the mountain.
Yes.
And that is why you see those big boulders in the gut, because those stuff come from in the mountain, right? And so it was not uncommon for the water to rise over the bridge, right? And that, for the folks who may not be aware, also feeds Nisbet Bridge, right? That goes straight down and it goes to the sea, right? So those days we used to have a lot of rainfall, right? And as a consequence, whether it is Nevis, St. Kitts, the Caribbean, Japan, and so on and so forth, you can't stop the raging waters. So no matter what you build, how you build, if you build, what Gatsby said, if you build, how you build, you're gone mad. So you're going to get those kind of damage, right, with this kind of torrential rain. So if a person is just saying it for saying its sake, or criticize it for criticism, I get that. But understand that man-made things, with this sort of things, you're going to have that stuff. Right? So sometimes people get too excited about certain things in a negative way. That is why I say sometimes you need to accentuate the positive. And if we come through and survive some of these rains with what we have, whether our houses or whatever, and so we are thankful.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Now, that is not to say that people should not criticize, but sometimes if you just keep doing that all the time, that's how you're going to end up living a whole life. And I will always find a little light moment anyway. I mean, you'll get upset, just like when I find you fellas criticizing the speed and I ask a little question. Yeah, Brian, you wanted to say something.
Of course, we are thankful for the rains. I saw some videos the day before out of St. Martin, streets in St. Martin that I walked a couple months ago. Actually, the water was up extremely high, and last night, today is now our turn. These rainfall, Webbo, often happens. We are in a region where, based on our weather pattern, we expect that we would have these type of rainfall from time to time. They can, as you indicated, bring some positive as well as they can bring some negative. I believe that persons may have been, not may, but some persons would have been inconvenienced this morning, trying to get out of their homes, trying to get to school, trying to get to work, and so on. I believe that we would have seen some of the farmers being affected by the heavy flooding. A lot of water would have gone over their crops and things like that. We would have seen a lot of our guts topping their banks, something like that. You spoke about the Nisbet Bridge. That would have obviously spill over. There are other areas where we may have seen some of our dirt roads, some of our remote areas being washed out. I'm still waiting for the final report on some of those activities. But this is something, Webbo, that we often would have here on the island, because our weather pattern would bring us some of these type of rainfall periodically. It is on the positive side of it. It helps us with our water. It allows our aquifers and our various reservoirs and things like that to be replenished. A lot of this water would probably run off, but a lot of it would obviously soak through the ground and help our various aquifers to replenish. So that is the positive side. It also, in some cases, I think it may have been perhaps too much water at once for some of our farmers, so some of them may, and we are expecting that we would see some loss in the agricultural sector. But all in all, I hope that our people would appreciate that we are living in a region, in an area where we can expect these kind of rainfalls from time to time. I believe that over time we continue to expand in our housing infrastructure, in our road infrastructure. Some of the homes, of course, may have been flooded based on their basement and how they were constructed, and bring about some inconvenience to some of our people. But I think all in all, Webbo, this is something that we need to expect, we should expect from time to time. It will bring some inconvenience, it will bring some sense of perhaps even fear for some people, because as you say, Webbo, there are persons who may not have seen this volume of rainfall in such a short period of time, and perhaps were somewhat fearful. Children, could have been scared of what they were seeing and what they were hearing. But I think all in all, it is something that as a people, and those of us who have been around for some time, can appreciate that these kind of occurrence will occur. I would just like to add, Webbo, that I hope that when we have these kind of rainfall, that people always try to put safety first. When you see these rise in our guts and so on, they must refrain from trying to cross them, because there is a high level of uncertainty as to exactly what is in that water. There could be obstacles, boulders that can swept away a car in an instant, or if you're trying to cross personally, can also cause some damage to you as well. So I would hope that when we have these kind of rainfall, that people would always try to put safety first. I remember, Webbo, as a young boy growing up, I mean, we would have seen this kind of thing. We would play in the streets and in the drains and so on and so forth, barefoot, coming from school in joggers and so on and so forth. That was our fun. But there is an element of danger, and I would hope that our people would have at all times use common sense in ensuring that they protect themselves, they protect their vehicle if they needed to get from point A to point B. I think that they could sit out a few hours if needs be, and allow the water to subside and allow the strength of the water to be reduced, and then try. I am hopeful, and like I said, we are still waiting for the complete report from our public works and our disaster team. I've drove around this afternoon to see some of the areas that were affected, and there are some areas where we have seen some washout, but once we have that report, we would do whatever we need to do as quickly as possible to make sure that those areas are passable as quickly as possible.
Yes, just one concern really about waterways. I'm not sure if I'm using the right term. You, Mr. Brand, as a man who's in planning, may know, because I think sometimes we have a tendency of leveling off the land. If we're going to build a home, if we're going to build a building, we tend to level off the land and not paying in much regards to the gradient and the way the natural flow has been for many years. I mean, maybe from the beginning of time, and that sometimes cause some inconvenience. I'm talking from experience, because we have my business place not too far from the supply office. We get a lot of water coming down our way, man. Just when it starts, it's really flow. I'm not sure if they did pay that much regards to the natural flow and the gradient of the concrete areas and so forth. But it's just my concern, because it really impacts on my property there. It's just a lot of water just come broadside, come through the fence. And I'm not sure how many people experience this, but it looks to me that sometimes we overlook the slight gradient, and we probably replace it with a nice level flat concrete, and that tends to changes the flow of the water and cause a problem elsewhere. But we realize also that, and I'm not sure if it's all about this climate change thing, but to me, back in the past, I could be wrong, we used to have a lot more rain, but we see a lot of water on the street these days. To me, there wasn't much rain, but a lot of water on the streets, I'm not sure if you can comment on that and probably give some reasons, if there's any reasons at all. Maybe we just grew up and we realize that back in the past, when you're inside for a whole day, you feel like it's many days. No, but the waterways, in terms of the gradients and regard to that, when they're laying down, broadside of concrete, a big area of concrete, sometimes to me should be considered. Otherwise it tends to send the water elsewhere.
Now you are correct, because we are now seeing a lot more what we call hard surfaces. We are not having the level of or the rate of percolation through the soil that would reduce water moving from point A to point B. So you are correct when you are seeing that there will end up now having more water on our roads and on the U drains and so on along our roads, because we are now doing a lot more hard surfaces. The surfaces are not as permeable as you said a long time ago, where when you get a heavy downpour, there is not as much concrete, there is not as much asphalt, so the water would drain to the soil a lot quicker, and you will not have a lot of those surface runoff as you are now seeing. That is an issue. We speak about infrastructure development and how we are developing. We want to see that we have more roads, more areas where we can shopping facility, entertainment facility, business facility, and a lot of these entities comes with some additional hard surfaces. I think that, let's look for example at and I hope that let me not call any business name, but there are businesses that have sizable parking lot areas, and when you look at the volume of hard surfaces, concrete, yes, they would have provided some mechanism for drainage and so on, but the water now is not necessarily dissipating through the soil as quickly. That water now have to run off and go somewhere else, and that volume of water obviously is building up along the road, on the road, along the road, and that kind. So you are correct. We are seeing a bit more of that. Whether we are getting more or less rainfall, let's put that aside for one moment. But what we are seeing is that we are now having a lot more hard surfaces that is creating a lot more surface runoff.
And I'm sure that some persons would argue too that a reason may be that some of these probably persons who are building, they might have tried to detour the natural waterway, so to speak. Maybe the natural waterway might have been probably going through their land, and they want to divert it. And I believe that could possibly be a problem, the diversion of water and the waterways, and some of the waterways have been clogged and stuff like that. So the water would now have to find another path. In some instances, I think it might have been in Tatola, possibly last year or year 4, when that happened, and a whole property was basically washed away.
Well, Roger, nature is going to find its natural course in time. You are correct. We have wrestled with persons who would have obstruct some of our waterways. The argument is that it's on their land, but at the same time it is a natural waterways that filters from the top of the mountain down to the sea, and they really ought not to be obstructed. Once those natural waterways are obstructed, you are correct, the water is going to find some other way of getting from point A to point B. It's gravity fed. The island of Nevis is like a umbrella cone. It's going to run from the top of the mountain all the way to the sea. And if it cannot percolate to the soil quickly enough, it's going to run off and find some way in running off. And because of some obstruction here and there, you find that other persons oftentimes will get flooded. We continue to see as well some blockage in some of our waterways, and some of the blockages are natural growth, but sadly some of those blockages as well are man-made, where people are dumping these refrigerators and stoves and those kind of items in our gut, and they also help to clog up the natural flow of the water once we have these kind of heavy rains. If you go downstream, I am sure if you go different parts of Nevis right now, when you go downstream and you look at some of the material that is further downstream, you would be amazed.
Not so bad.
All kind of disposable items that really should have been in our landfill, and they are also contributing to some of the issues that we are facing.
True.
And of course, is nobody.
Mr. Brand, just a question. You may know, may not know as the case may be, but are there laws on the books that speak to, persons, diverting, natural waterways?
Well, it really ought not to happen. It is the natural. But go back. I think that sometimes persons purchase land, and sadly, I have seen a particular situation where someone overseas would have purchased a piece of land. They would have sent their monies, bought this land. When they came home to build, it smack center in the middle of a gut. And I think that while we try to complete and enact that transaction, really and truly those kind of things ought. And you see, when you look at a land document, you're not really seeing the terrain of the land. You're just seeing a square rectangle, a rectangle or square or something. And oftentimes that creates some challenge. It really ought not to happen. Those are natural water courses. They are protected areas. They are areas where should naturally be free. The building regulations allow you to build from those I can't remember the exact measurement, but I think it's up to 20 or 30 feet from the crest of a gut. Persons fence in some of those and plant flowers and fruit trees and all kind of thing and create some obstruction. So there is a lot of things that we find ourselves having to wrestle with. But it really ought not to happen, Roger, because I think it obstructs the natural flow of what would have happened today, these kind of torrential rains.
I don't know. Whenever growing up, I always hear that, the gut don't belongs to anyone. You could own lands on either side,
yes,
but the gut don't belongs to anyone. The reason why I'm saying this, I don't know if there are not laws on the books, if maybe it's time for us to have laws on the books, because we understand, the destruction that, the water can have if it is, diverted elsewhere.
Bren, I wanted to ask you, as you were speaking about the rainfall and what it is doing to our stocks where water is concerned.
Our
stocks, our supply.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good when you get rains like this, because it replenishes the aquifer and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I learn, and you can just correct me, because sometimes people give me bad information. You have a new well in the Madden's area?
We have discovered, we have dug 2 wells. We are still doing some final pump tests and chemistry of those. Well, yes, we have 2 actually. We have discovered water.
Okay. So you have discovered water in 2 wells. Are they of a part of the same aquifer? Because remember, we have wells in that area, and that area has been perhaps one of our plenteous supply, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is it new water, or is it in the same aquifer, if we know?
It's uncertain, Webbo, that it is actually the same aquifer, but the geological data is, when you look at that Madden's area, it's a wide area where you are correct, where we have dug a number of other wells. The suspicion is that it could very well be the same aquifer, as well as because of the vast area of water that we are suspecting in that area. I think if you dig wells in different area, and the chemistry Webbo is going to be able to tell us whether it's from the same aquifer, because if it's from a different aquifer, you will obviously see a difference in the chemistry from the water. If it's the same aquifer, then you're expected to see a similar chemistry from that. So the jury is still out on that.
Okay, so that's one way of knowing the difference.
Yes.
Okay, so just for my own knowledge and in information, if it turns out that it is of the same composition and consequently the same aquifer, it just means that we get out more water faster, but from the same supply.
That could be a fair assessment to the Jews from once it's from the same aquifer.
Yeah. And as you say that the experts will be able to tell us, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they can't just suspect like me.
That is why we are waiting on the chemistry of both sides, and that will be able to tell us. And we are going to implement our pump testing that would allow us to see if there is any effect on the other wells in the immediate areas as well.
Okay. So and so if it is if it is a new aquifer,
yes,
right, then we can confidently and maybe fairly say that we have now improved our supply.
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to know that. Okay, anybody else has anything they wanted to?
Just one question, Mr. Brand. Do our water supply as it stands is in any way threatening, in a sense that it's insufficient or anything of that sort?
During the different periods of the year, we struggle to meet the demands because
depends on the rainfall.
Yeah, we continue to see expansion in housing, expansion in agriculture, our tourism plant. The wells can only be sustainable if we have rainfall. The natural cycle is that the rain would fall, some of it percolates to the ground and replenish. We are also, there are 1 or 2 of our wells that have been online for 15, 20, 30 years. They are tired, just like everything else, they are tired. And we have seen one or two where we may have had some salt intrusion, and that is an indication that the drawdown of the water at the level where it is getting to a level where we are now interacting with salt water. So a lot of factors are working in tandem to ensure that, based on how we extract the volume of water and the rate at which we extract that water, could create some problems. So that is why we really have to be ahead of the game by ensuring that we can bring new wells, new aquifers, different sources of water online to rest some of these wells and to reduce the drawdown of some of these wells. It is a balancing act, and of course, with all of this global warming factors, we are having longer, hotter days, and that is increasing the rate of evaporation as well. So there is just a lot of different factors that we have to wrestle with on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, not just the development in terms of expansion of hotels and homes and so forth, but if you continue to cover the earth with concrete, then less water goes down into the earth, right? And so that is also a factor. So
no, less water may go down into the earth, Naya, but keep this in mind. When the water goes into the earth, for you to be able to retrieve it sometime later on, it must go in a place where it is trapped.
That's right.
Where you can go now and get it. It's just like building a cistern, right? Now, a lot of rain fell just a while ago, right? Those who had cisterns and hooked up and stuff like that
in good condition,
can benefit from it all next year, maybe.
Yes.
Right? Those who didn't will still be complaining that they get no water. They don't have any water. So I have a saying that I used to use very often on my other show, and it goes like this: life can be easier than we make it most of the time. Ain't no rocket science to a lot of stuff. Right? So it's the same thing with the aquifer. I mean, we can say that, and then don't build buildings and don't cover it with concrete. If you had left it just so, and the aquifer is not there, that traps it and so on,
you still have the problem.
You're back to square one. Right? And unless somebody has another topic, I want to roll into something else I have written here. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
The world has changed so rapidly over the last decade. And I sometimes am a junkie of analytical stuff and reasoning and stuff like that. And I'm watching, you see, when I watch the presidential race in the United States, because it affects the world. They're the leaders, good or bad, right? And I watch it over a period of time. And another saying I normally have is, leadership is not easy. A lot of people fight and do all sort of things to get into leadership, and then we don't know how to deal with it, how to handle it, right? And one of the things that I'm watching now is the post-mortem and the debate and stuff like that, and one of the criticisms they're making of the Democrats, that they're too bright. That's funny? That's not funny. Because you have a set of very bright people, they were at the reins of power for a long time, and they don't know how to use it because they're too scared. You hear me say it once, you hear me say it 100 times. What's the fellow who invented Nike? What's his name? The guy, the black guy. Anyway, somebody call us and tell us, right? Those funny glasses, man. You like to wear some funny glasses. Anyway, just do it. Right? And the guy made a big success. Everybody talking. He doesn't see with the pathway, so just do it. So the world has changed. And Trump told you he's going to change up this thing. Now he said, I'm going to abolish the Department of Education. Oh, and everybody's screaming and so on. He just goes and he does it. Right? Edric taught me in politics, if you're going to run, it helps if you're good looking. People laugh. It helps if people like you. I saw somebody sent me a thing. Well, not sent me, because it's an open secret. Open confession is good for the soul. I say sometimes I don't go to social media much, but some people who I have contact with, they like to put up things. They call it a status. So sometimes I just look at them, and I saw somebody had up something which I shared with my friends and stuff like that, and caught them off guard. How many of you know? Let me start with Brand, because I'm on his case tonight. Brand, were you aware? Because he's a politician, and I'm sure he's not up to date with a lot of things. Do you know that since the election, they arrested Trump?
They arrested Trump?
Yeah, again, because that was done before. Were you aware of it?
I honestly was not.
You aware of it, Naya?
No.
You aware of it, Fifield?
No.
Would it surprise you to learn that they arrested Trump for beating two women?
Since the election?
Since the election.
Well, I obviously missed that one.
You missed that one.
Yeah.
Would you believe that he did?
That he did what? Beat up two women?
Beat two women, and they arrested them.
Well,
of course, you're not to let him go.
Yes, he beat two women. He beat Hillary and he beat Kamala.
So there you go.
I am aware that he had beaten two women since the election. Kamala Harris and Hillary.
Yeah, those two.
So they arrested him for that?
Yeah.
Well,
So no. So
I obviously missed that one.
I thought that was funny. But the point I'm making is, now I'm looking at the assessment. And in America they do polling, they do interviews, they try to find out why did people do this or why didn't they do that and stuff like that. Do you realize now that the women went for Biden 10 points more than they went for Harris?
Yes, the numbers are a telling story.
Do you realize that a lot of black people did not vote? I'm coming to the point that I want to make now. The first time that Trump won, 2 days later, they had an historic demonstration at the Capitol. Protests. They said Trump came out, made a statement, short statement, you all should have voted.
And they did vote this time.
But they vote for him.
Yes.
So, the point I want to get to for you guys to comment on is how important it is to vote.
Well, I believe that it's really important, for us to vote, each individual, Webbo. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It's pointless for us to stay at home, do not vote, and then whatever the situation is, we have to be in that particular situation and to complain. When our vote, especially in these small island states, Webbo, is so crucial. We recognize, I think was right there in Barbuda, over the years, I think it might have been Trevor Walker and what's the name of the guy that airport is going to be named after in Barbuda. for a number of years, they've been winning each other by one vote. You know, right here in Nevis in St. James's, we know that the Honorable Daniel Hodge won her seat by 8 votes. You know, so it is very, very important. It is crucial. I think Mr. Brand won the first time by double digits, I believe.
11.
He can 11. You know, we know that. We know Mr. Amru back in 89 federal elections won the St. George's seat by 8 votes. So, you know, it is very important. It doesn't make any sense. I believe that we should be part of it. We should be happy. We should want to be, you know, in a position to raise our hands and say, yes, I would have voted for a particular individual, a particular party, whether or not that individual or party was successful. You know, I believe that, you know, just to go out, when we look back and we understand what our forefathers would have had to go through for us black people, to go and vote, the privilege that we have now, and we want to stay home, I'm not seeing it. I believe that it is incumbent on all of us to go out on election day, whenever that may be, and vote for whomever we so feel fit to vote for Webbo. I think it's important. And if I may, Webbo, I can recall when I was in fourth form, many years ago, many moons ago, we had an election in the class for president, I think it was. And there were a few persons who didn't vote. I think it might have been 3 or 4 persons. And the person who won the presidency, I think, won by 1 vote. And then, you know, some who didn't voted, you know who they were, because at that point in time you had to vote by raising your hand. And, you know, they come and they show, oh, he should not have been president because this and because, and they had an opportunity. But now the opportunity has gone. So I believe that people should vote Webbo.
I must agree with you to the fullness, you know, because it's a right we should enjoy. It's a right that we, in the past, was denied. I think one's opinion is important to be counted. You would like your opinion to be counted. As Webbo spoke about, accentuate the positive. I mean, whatever you perceive to be positive, or candidate that you think will be, you know, doing positive things, then you vote for him or her. But if you don't, you tend to accentuate the negative, because you tend to give basically more power to the opposition or the candidate you feel would not be in your interest. So I think, yes, that's what changes things, really, if you want to make a change. And I think people, in a general sense, I mean, would like to either want to make a change or want to continue along that pathway. And I think the only way to promote that during an election is to go and vote. Again, you know, we are talking about the future of an island, the future of a country, and you must be a part of that in some way. And one way you can ensure that you're a part of that is to go out there and vote, and vote, and exercise that right. That was, you know, in the past denied for various reasons. It's always one thing to be led and to be manipulated, but of course, if you can be effective in basically, you know, accentuating the positive. I mean, whatever you perceive the positive to be, or whatever you perceive that individual to be doing, as it relates to positive or negative. I mean, you should go out and vote, really. I can't see the hardship in just being neutral or totally not concerned about the future, or not concerned about impacting on a particular situation, because you're alive, and it would affect you whether you vote or not. So let's hope that you want it to affect you and impact on you in a positive way, and so you go and vote to your likeness. I think that's what the democratic process entails. The democratic process entails that you go and vote for who you want to. And I never get upset with anyone who vote otherwise. I really, I'm not a person who get vexed with people who feels like, who has a different political opinion at all. I don't think one of the greatest harm is to deny, a people that right, to vote. And sometimes when politicians and political parties tend to obfuscate and confuse the whole process, it's not a good thing, and they sometimes bear great consequences. Because it's a right, just like the right to an education, the right to live, the right to practice religion. It's a human right. It's a personal right that you contribute to the decision-making process. And so, of course, and Trump said you should have voted, and they seem to have voted this time. And it looks as if the numbers speak volume as it relates to the American election. Really and truly. I wonder what we, in a general sense, as black people, how we look at ourselves, because how important and relevant are we in this process, really. You can't deny that race play an important role, and the question is, where are we as black people, and how do we see ourselves after this election? Are we just factors of production, or can we really effectuate a change in the country which we live in? I'm speaking about the USA, and it's still very shocking. It's still very shocking, even to those who wanted Trump to win for whatever reason. I still feel like it's very shocking to them that it was such a complete wiped out, really.
Webbo, voting is, in my mind, a sacred right. It is in my mind, it's a contract between the electorate and the victor in any election. It is a right, Webbo, that we can place right alongside the right for one to express their own religion, the right for education, health, freedom of expression. There are some basic human rights that we have that I think that, based on our very human nature, would always want to express those rights and to see those rights and fulfilled. When we, as some people do at times, quote unquote, sit on the fence, and a particular outcome is had, then there is, as we would say, the gnashing of teeth and the wailing and so on. But I think, Webbo, that for individuals to participate in the process and ensure that they are, as it were, in the game to see the kind of outcome that they want, they have to go and vote. I don't think that they need to leave it up to anyone else other than themselves. This is something, Webbo, that I feel is sacred. It is something that I feel that many persons have longed for, have fought for. When you look at the history, so to speak, and the formation of a place like the United States, coming out of the history that they have had, and persons, it is a country of immigrants. It is a country where that have been built on many generations from all over the world. It is a melting pot of different philosophies, different mindsets, different things that people aspire to. But it is, in my mind, a democracy that feels that every single individual at a certain age should have that right.
Sure.
And once they are enshrined with that right, I don't think that there is anything or anyone should try and dissuade them from exercising that right. We have seen, Webbo, that in certain countries in the world, that right does not exist. And the population or the persons in those kind of situations, their freedom of expression are being stifled, and they cannot express themselves as to who they would want to lead them forward. And I feel that, Webbo, we have seen the many challenges that these kind of structure have placed on these people over the years. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have that right as well, where once you are at a certain age and you follow the necessary steps to get on that registry of voters, that is your right to vote as well. Excuse me. And I want to encourage
This is Talk That Get Results. We'll be back right after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
Episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm back with Bran, and when you're through, Bran, I got another area I want to go into, if it's okay.
Yeah, well, but I wanted to encourage our people that they ought not to take this right for granted. It is their right, it is their sacred right, and they should exercise it whenever the times are availed to them and participate in the process. You said that Donald Trump said to persons who did not vote, go and vote, and they went and they vote, and now he is once again the President of the United States of America elect.
If I feel you want to do.
No, I was just shaking my head in agreement. I wholeheartedly believe that people should vote.
I wanted to also highlight, which we wrestle with locally and regionally as well. And as I said, in the United States, one I used to say, when the United States cough,
when they sneeze, you catch the cold.
Okay, well, but you are coughing, so let's hope that let's hope that all is. But anyway, this episode of Elon Musk and buying the votes, look out for that as the norm coming up soon. See, these are things that people, in my view, you look at if you want to keep, be ahead of what's coming up. So look out for that as being one of the norms that's coming up, and it will survive the court systems. Right? So that is one of the things I wanted to point out again. And also look at the justice system and how, not only with the votes, because remember that's where we came from with the voting, when you used to have property and worth to be able to vote.
Yes.
Now, did it go away? Or if it did, has it come back? With the persons with now worth controlling and deciding who run things. And out the window goes one man,
one vote.
That's another thing that can provide a good debate. Was it the norm still, or will it become and continue to be the norm? And I like to use local examples. This British American thing, right? See, a lot of people maybe don't pay attention to it because maybe they were not involved and so on and so forth. But even if you were not involved, watch what happened. And the last stanza to it was when some lawyers, private lawyers, took a class action suit against the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And what was the argument they were making? That in the British American fiasco situation, where persons from the OECS and stuff like that lost money and stuff like that, and persons from Trinidad and Tobago, where the company was headquartered. So the government of Trinidad and Tobago went and gave the people of Trinidad and Tobago, who were victims of British American, gave them relief. And they didn't give the other persons none. Now, the lawyers are arguing is one economic space. So the person in Trinidad and Tobago who got relief should be no different from the person in St. Kitts and Nevis. And cite CARICOM and all that and stuff like that. As part of the judgment, the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, that's why some people argue. Now you say it, don't just point, say it.
Let me start by the Privy Council, man.
Yeah.
Let me start the Privy Council.
Yeah. So now you say, carry mine up there. If they rip me off, I satisfy, right? So,
Sadly.
yeah. So, the CCJ, in part of the judgment against the people in these islands, referred to an uncle of mine had sold, this is perhaps can fit on that light moment, but it's true. He sold a fellow a piece of land. So imagine, Mr. Brand, you is a heavyweight. You go to Naya and you buy a piece of land. Bought a piece of land, and Naya gave you a receipt, right? And then a little later on, trouble comes about the same land, because there's one thing that have confusion always is land.
Is land.
Fifield appears and say he owns that land. So trouble headed for court. Brand, you are so joyous that you have your evidence. So you said to your friend, my glad, in that case, I got My receipt. Naya, who gave you the receipt, who you bought the land from, proclaim that piece of paper there ain't value nothing.
But he don't have your money.
He has your money and he's laughing at you. That piece of paper ain't value nothing. How are you going to feel? So see what happens. The area that the lawyers put to the court to show that the Trinidadian people and the St. Kitts people and the Antigua people are one. They basically said to them, that treaty you're talking about ain't value nothing in this instance because it wasn't really signed per se and so on and so forth. What I gleaned from that, you see these games that they're playing? These freedom of movement and sign this and sign that to thing and stuff like that, and when the rubber hit the road, somebody say, oh, I'm serious with that and so on. As Edric W. would say, are you following me?
Yes.
Okay, so I leave it there.
Well, the treaty can always cause problem, Webbo, because if the courts that oversee the treaty is not constitutionalized in many of the islands, then the treaty becomes a problem.
But meanwhile, year after year after year, those who put it in place, etc., benefit from it. But when the time comes for us to now use it so that we can get reprieve, you hear what they tell us?
Yeah.
You understand the connectivity now with that piece of paper there in value nothing, but he has your money.
Don't spend.
Right?
Same thing. Yeah.
These are, you wanted these games. They're playing all the time.
And who suffers?
This is once in a lifetime you hear me express certain views, you know what I mean? But these things, I don't like people do those things.
Well, this British American incident and situation have left quite a number of persons in a very terrible place. We have seen, Webbo, where quite a number of individuals would have invested heavily, saved heavily in this British American company. To the extent, Webbo, where many families, many businesses would have collapsed because of and suffered significant financial loss because of the collapse of British American. You're correct that the government of Trinidad and Tobago would have, quote unquote, taken care of the policy holders, so to speak, in Trinidad and Tobago. I feel, Webbo, where the CARICOM OECS would have stumbled and faltered, or that was not necessarily applied through the rest of the member state that British American operated in, and as a result many persons are still left holding an empty bag, so to speak. It is an ongoing situation where even after all this time, many persons, some who would have gone to the great beyonds, are still hurting. Many persons are still in a worse place than they were because of the situation with. And there seem to be, Webbo, no relief or no end in sight for this ongoing saga. Persons who would have, as you would have given the good example of buying a piece of land and receiving a receipt persons who would have invested in good faith and having their quote-unquote documents to say that they would have invested. And at the end of the day, money have been spent. The land is now being owned by somebody else. And giving that example and that synergy is, in my mind, a real hard example. I feel, Webbo, that just as other situations in these islands, we have had a situation as well with Wtih, where other Caribbean countries would have invested and been partners in Wtih. Wtih would have served various territories over the years. Many countries would have benefited from the Wtih providing the various services through these islands over the years. Many economies would have been built on the backs of Wtih, so to speak. That is another example where it just, as it were, fell by the wayside after all of these investments, and it baffles me, Webbo, that we speak of this free movement, we speak of the Caribbean integration and regional integration, and whenever there is a situation where it demands and requires a real unification of the Caribbean, we find ourselves falling short in ensuring that we save some of these. British American is a good example. Wtih is another example where I felt that the regional integration aspect of our region have been found wanting in these two examples. The Caribbean islands, the Caribbean region, it has left a level of mistrust. It has left a level of uncertainty and fear, so to speak, in some of our regional institutions that are seeking to diversify through other territories in the Caribbean. And people are going to always point to this particular situation. Well, your office is in down the road and you want to come in here. Why should I partake of this when if something happens you leave us? And I feel, Webbo, that we are at a stage now where as a region we are facing numerous challenges. We are facing challenges of this global warming phenomenon. We are facing challenges of sea level rise. We are facing challenges, Webbo, with water throughout the region. I attended this water conference in Trinidad and Tobago last month, and I was amazed, Webbo, that Nevis is actually doing well, and yet we are saying that we want to take on these challenges as a region together. And sometimes I wonder, as you say, Webbo, if it's just talk, because when the leather meet the road, as the old people say, when your neighbor house on fire, you wet your own. And some of the houses throughout the region, because of one reason or the other, have actually burned down, and it also appears that everybody else's house got burned down. And I think that there is a level of mistrust. I don't think that our people throughout the region are as comfortable and as the trustworthiness, so to speak, of some of these entities. And I think the people of the Caribbean are weary, Webbo, of we have been in this unification before. When you hear what 1 from 10 leave, precisely. Okay. It's almost like a revolving door, and it's almost as if every man or woman or country for themselves. And when there is an opportunity for this talk about regional unity and regional integration. It's at a point when they are seen to be benefit for one or two or the other. But when things begin to get a little difficult, it leaves those who are in the setup and in the makeup baffled that they are left holding the empty bag. The receipt with
piece of paper. Yes, I mean, with that fiasco there, I think it would have been very good if that example could have been set. But, you know, politics play an important role in this thing, you know, with limited funds. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that the headquarters of was in St. Kitts Nevis with limited funds. The St. Kitts Nevis government might have taken care of St. Kitts and Nevis people.
First and foremost.
Well, you're correct.
Okay.
I think that every government has the right to.
And sometimes I wonder what really, and people say all kind of things, frivolous thing to me sometimes. Cricket bind us, Caribbean bind us. But really, what really bind us together? I think when you look at other regions, say like the European Union, you know, war, you know, and the destruction of their cities sometimes, and bloodshed more binds people. The Caribbean never had to defend the Caribbean and people from the Caribbean. Really and truly, what really binds us? We don't trade much amongst each other. The EC dollars is just used in the OECS. What really binds us is the big question. I study European law, and there were so many things that binds Europe together. You know, the idea of not going to war again with each other. Even though, you know, the civil servants of the European Union is some 30-something thousand people, and most of them are interpreters, because every country speaks a different language, but they are able to hold themselves together for reasons. And I often ask ourselves, even though we speak the same language in the Caribbean, we share the same history, but there's something that does not bind us to that extent that we find resource within ourselves as a region.
Is it that we have become, and we have always remained, quote-unquote, territorial?
Yes. For some reason, maybe because of the impoverishedness and where we are coming from. You know? Okay, we are better because we have more, we are doing better. And so we seems to don't want to be aligned with those that are not doing too good, you know, and size, you know, of bigger countries and the smaller countries. I mean, in Europe you find, you know, Germany with the biggest economy, but they are still in union with those that are very small, relatively small economies. But there is something to me that does not really truly bind the Caribbean, which sometimes even me myself find it difficult to be sure about, to be quite honest.
Now, as you alluded to earlier, and I believe that that what comes the closest, you know, is the cricket, you know, and I suspect that the cricket, because you know, is representation of you know, a number of islands, you know, coming together under one banner, and I believe that is the closest, and I dare say the English-speaking Caribbean, you know, when we speak to the cricket. But I suspect that you are right. We don't trade on any large scale. We don't really have anything, even here in the Caribbean, as you would have said, you know, the dollar, the EC dollar, is just spent basically in the OACS. Barbados has their dollar, Trinidad has their dollar, Guyana, Jamaica. So if it was $1, so to speak, I suspect that we would have had one common denominator, and we would have been fighting for one goal to keep that particular dollar alive than possibly pegged to the US currency, the US dollar. And so Jamaica would fight their own war, so to speak, when it comes to their dollar, and the OACS when it comes to the East dollar. So I mean, we probably have to find ways, if at all that is what we want as a people, to be unified. We have to find common grounds, and for us to put away our selfishness and our greed, because much of it could very well come down to being selfish, being greedy, so to speak. You spoke to the smaller islands and the bigger islands, but it starts with our individual, and then collectively, the island, the country. What do we want as a people? Do we look at ourselves as one unit?
Fine. Yeah.
And if we don't look at ourselves as one unit, then we would have some problems. And if we look at ourselves as one unit, then how can we forge going forward as a unit, and not as a small island man, so to speak, and a big island man, so to speak? And then we have to look at a level playing ground. We'll have to look at jobs, opportunities. We have to look at how can we we move around freely. When I say freely, I mean without much cost. Because when we look at the Caribbean,
you don't mean like we reach a stage where you go and get things and don't pay?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. I'm speaking about getting from one point A to point B in terms of you look at leaving St. Kitts and trying to reach maybe Jamaica, and you possibly have to go through Miami and then come down. I think in just recent times we now having direct flights from St. Kitts to Trinidad. Before then it was a challenge, and costly, so we have to look at that. I think
so why do you think you can't get it done? You don't have enough brilliant people to figure it out?
I am not saying that we can't have it done,
right?
Webbo.
But so why is it not done? If it's such a great idea, if it is something that is feasible and stuff like that, right? Why is it not done?
Selfishness.
Okay. So selfishness
Greed.
is ahead of money then, like making money.
Well,
So in other words, it can be done, it's lucrative, but we're so selfish that we don't do it.
I think that Webbo, it's as I said, it's selfishness, it is greed, it is it's
Okay, let's dissect what you're saying. The greed part which means you want a lot, correct?
well, you want to stay on top, so to speak.
Right. So you realize that people want to travel around, so you put an airline or whatever it is in place, and you make, as Edric would say, a pile of money, correct? Huh?
Yes.
So why is that hampering it from getting it done, if you're so greedy?
Well, that's the thing, Webbo. It is it's a combination.
Okay.
It's a combination.
Okay. So what I've just presented is accepted.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the selfishness part. So that is very lucrative and fine and everything, but now you're so selfish that you decide, well, I'm not doing it.
Precisely.
But I share different view to my
sure
good
that
friend Roger. I believe, Webbo, that perhaps why some of these things are not being done is, in my humble estimation, is the viability of a lot of these, and we are talking about traveling, air travel.
Economics. Yeah.
Is the viability of many of these routes.
Don't pay.
The return on some of these routes are perhaps not as lucrative as you don't have the volume in the traffic moving from, let's say, for example,
What's the Caribbean?
St. Kitts and Nevis to Trinidad.
It's the exact
How many
point.
people leave St. Kitts and Nevis and go to Trinidad and Tobago on a regular basis, or vice versa? The traffic is in my mind somewhat limited. We have, on the other hand, a lot of different quote unquote island stops going down are coming up, and I think that over the years the movement of people in the Caribbean, because of the volume, has not really been as lucrative as I think that it can be. The second thing, Webbo, when you have to travel in the region, the last time I looked at a ticket, I realized that the price of the ticket itself is not really expensive. The price of the ticket is not really expensive.
That's true.
You have a lot of added charges and costs and taxes.
Greed.
And, well, you said greed. You said greed, Roger. But I go back to what I said earlier. Because of the volume, it's not as viable. So many of these governments, or all of these governments, once you touch their soil, they're gonna charge you.
I don't know if I, with permission, Webbo, if I can interrupt Mr. Brand.
Sure.
Mr. Brand, I believe that this could come down to, simple economics, and, we can even, for this particular, we could probably equate it with a dance. For instance, that you're going to a dance, you have a bar. That person's, probably come out to drink, and they would drink a lot. So instead of charging maybe $30 at the door, you charge $20, and you will be amazed when they reach inside how much returns you get because of the number of drinks that they buy.
Roger,
I am saying,
stick up in. Hold on a minute. I have seen, you guys, folks go to these same function that you're talking about and have one drink all night. One Guinness in their hand all night.
Right. And
it goes back to what I said earlier. The viability of quote unquote the dance.
Okay. Let me ask this question. What makes the route to the USA viable? I know you're going to tell me I'm tourist, but let me not answer. Let me just ask.
But you answered the question.
Okay, fine. So are we not tourists when we travel to our neighboring islands, and are they not tourists? I am saying maybe what we need to do is to have maybe some cultural links. We have teach our history maybe in school, so persons want to go and visit the what they call it, the Sophia in St. Lucia. People want to go to the Gabics. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, in Dominica. And I believe that our islands are small, but they are unique in themselves. Yeah. And as you rightly said, the airline ticket itself is not very costly, but these taxes and charges.
We're talking about when we talk about Caribbean unity. There must be a commonness amongst us.
Exactly. So how do we want us to visit each other?
All these things will have to be ironed out.
Exactly.
In order to, increase maybe the viability of going. But I mean, there's more people leaving St. Kitts going Miami than going Trinidad. So you jump in a plane from here to go Miami, and then when you reach Miami, there's more people going Miami to Trinidad, and so the route seems to be an easier way, financially more friendly.
Look, if I may, I had the opportunity to go to Dominica a few times, and I really like it. It's natural, the rivers and everything like that. And I said to my family, we should take a visit to Dominica. And when I went online, I looked at the tickets to go to Dominica. I believe at the time there was close to $700 per ticket. And then when I come back and I look at the tickets at the time to go to New York, I believe it was 500 plus. And then when you look at it, a poor man like me from Webb's ground, I mean, what the option is would be New York, because it's a family of 5. It's 5 of us. That extra $200 plus now, that can come into spending money. So this is what we are saying. The routes, and when you even look at the taxes, and you would recognize that the taxes are not that high as those that are levied in the Caribbean. Just look at it.
So you call that greed?
It equates to greed.
What about contribution to the revenue to pay the civil servants?
It is a contribution, and I'm not going to doubt that. But then I believe that it is too exorbitant, and if it is too exorbitant, I believe that it goes down as greed.
We race against ourselves.
Raja, I look at you give an analysis of the costs from St. Kitts Nevis to, I think you said Dominica. And from St. Kitts Nevis to New York. A lot of that, in my humble estimation, has to do with the volume and economies of scale. You have more persons traveling going north than persons traveling from these islands going south, and the volume goes back to volume, right? You made a very interesting point or argument, whether or not we in the Caribbean are minded and mindful to enjoy each other's space a bit more. Kittitians and Nivisians going to Dominica and St. Lucia and Trinidad and enjoy our summer and vacation and so on and so forth. I don't believe that is happening as much or to the extent that it can, and perhaps if we are serious about regional integration and interacting with our fellow Caribbean countries, if you go in a class and you have 10 children in that class and you ask them where they want to spend their summer, I am almost certain that the majority of them are going to tell you that they would prefer to go somewhere else than in a Caribbean country.
That might be so, Mr. Brand, but I am saying, if we were to teach our children in the same schools and show them how they could appreciate the Caribbean, I believe that the answer in the next year or two could very well be different.
So then we are all in agreement that we are failing on the pillars of regional integration and what we need to do in terms of building up this integration and regional movement and travel that we are so desirous of seeing more in the Caribbean.
Well, I suppose on an individual level and on a local level, governmental level and all that, I suppose, but I still feel like Dominica seems to be too much like St. Kitts and Nevis to have that excitement to go. as a kid, and I don't know how we can change that, especially in these days where we are the world. We are we are so connected. Yes, I'll prefer to go to Europe than to go to St. Vincent. Because you want to see something different. You want to experience something different. Some people want to see snow.
That's true.
Some people want to ride on a train. Want to go on the underground. Want to take the express. And so just bigger things. Things that we see on TV. But I do understand what you're talking about. And that's the thing I'm on about. What really do we have that glue us in the Caribbean together, and to make us, our attitude as individual, as government, move towards that integration that will encourage a lot more traffic, a lot more traveling. Trade would be something, but are we trading more with each other? Do we find that is happening?
Naya, you said something that is very instructive in terms of what they see on television, on TV. And I believe that if we were to show more Caribbean content, I believe...
But which TV we watching? Are you talking about Nevis TV? We don't... How much people watch Nevis TV on a level? I mean, we're supposed to. I would encourage that. But, I mean, the TV that we watch, can we control that?
But this is what I'm saying. We have to inculcate these things from a very tender age in our children to appreciate what we have, and we could put it in a way that you compare and you contrast. You go to different Caribbean islands. You have in Nevis the hot springs. There's so many other things. In Barbados they have what they call the underground tunnel cave. They are very similar, but at the same time there's some differences, and I believe if we can bring them out, if we can encourage our youths, the whole populace, to view more Caribbean content, maybe the cable channels would probably have to be different, so we could know. It's amazing. There are things that many of us know about New York, for example, that we do not know about Grenada, about St. Lucia, about St. Vincent, Montserrat, Angola, but we know, and much of it, where we get it from, the television. And that is what I'm saying. Maybe it's time, if we want, to be unified in some way, in some sort, because the television is an influencer.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I put it in my own unique way. Everybody does talk, but who do talk that get results?
On radio.
So you can get the television, but you got to be persuasive with your message. Otherwise, they will continue to watch what is there. So you just can't get the television. You agree with that?
Of course.
You got to make your case. So how are you going to do that?
By starting here.
You have to have a case to make. Place.
I started out by saying you could talk. Everybody talks.
Yeah.
But when I say that, what I mean is, when you're making your presentation, you got to be persuasive, convincing. You have to be.
Yeah.
Not just a lot of us do that. We figure that once we can get in the pulpit or be a preacher or get in behind a microphone and stuff like that, the case is made. No, you got the vehicle.
Yeah.
You got to make your case. You got to be persuasive.
Yes.
Brand and Fifield are not going to be pleased with me about this. Harris had a good vehicle. She couldn't make a case. She could not make a case. And Naya knew that because Naya said it before the election. Maybe that's he get Edric thoughts. That's why he's sitting in Edric's seat. Who's got the last word?
Well, you can only make a case if you got a case to make.
I feel is giving the impression that he's got a case to make, or he's just talking.
Well, I believe that we as lay people, you know, we have to agitate and, you know, and hope that our leaders, you know, would listen to us and act accordingly.
What if the leaders make the same argument that you just make? Because keep in mind, we had a leader, they say, I don't know, maybe I was on holiday when it happened, that said that the electricity went sky high. And people started to march so that something could be done about it. Guess who was leading the march? This program repeats tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith This and That Scarborough and Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. A place you must spend all your evenings right here in the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the